It started with a lie that lasted less than 10 seconds. But it changed 2 lonely lives forever. The moment her mother smiled through tears and thanked me for finally making her daughter happy, I opened my mouth to tell the truth. Before I could say a single word, my roommate quietly reached for my hand beneath the dining table, squeezed it tightly, and whispered that one heartbreaking sentence I will never forget. "Let's just let them keep thinking that." In that instant, I realized she wasn't protecting herself from embarrassment. She was protecting someone else's heart. That if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue sharing heartfelt stories that remind us how powerful compassion can be. When I first rented the spare bedroom in the small brick apartment on Maple Avenue, I expected nothing more than a quiet place to sleep after long shifts at the local architectural firm. The apartment belonged to Rowan Mercer, a freelance illustrator whose colorful paintings covered almost every wall except her own bedroom. She wasn't loud or difficult. She paid her bills on time, labeled food in the refrigerator with tiny handwritten notes, and apologized whenever she accidentally left a coffee mug in the sink. We lived together with the careful politeness of 2 strangers trying not to inconvenience each other. We shared groceries occasionally, laughed over bad television commercials, and argued only once about whose turn it was to replace the smoke detector batteries. It wasn't friendship at first, and it certainly wasn't romance. It was simply 2 people surviving expensive rent in a city where loneliness had become almost as common as traffic. As the months passed, routines quietly stitched our lives together. Saturday mornings became grocery trips followed by coffee from the bakery across the street. Rainy afternoons were spent assembling inexpensive furniture or fixing broken shelves because neither of us liked paying repairmen for simple jobs. When Rowan caught the flu, I stayed home from work to make soup and keep her hydrated because there was nobody else nearby who would. When I injured my ankle slipping on wet pavement, she insisted on driving me to every physical therapy appointment until I could walk comfortably again. Neither of us ever called these moments special. They simply became part of daily life, as ordinary as sunlight pouring through the kitchen window. Rowan rarely spoke about her family, and I respected that silence. The only things I knew were scattered pieces gathered over months. Her father had passed away several years earlier after a long illness. Her mother lived several states away with Rowan's grandmother, whose memory had begun fading rapidly. Her younger brother had recently accepted a job overseas. Family visits had become increasingly rare because everyone seemed to be carrying responsibilities that kept them apart. Sometimes I noticed Rowan staring at old photographs before quietly putting them back inside a drawer. Whenever she realized I had entered the room. One warm spring afternoon, she rushed into the apartment carrying 3 grocery bags and wearing an expression I had never seen before. It wasn't fear exactly. It was panic mixed with excitement. Her mother had decided to surprise her with a visit. She was already driving into town with Rowan's grandmother. They planned to spend the afternoon together before returning home the following day. Rowan confessed she had forgotten to mention she lived with a roommate because the subject had never really come up. I laughed, thinking it wasn't a problem at all. We would simply introduce ourselves honestly and enjoy lunch together. Life, however, rarely follows simple plans. The front door opened, and within seconds Rowan's grandmother wrapped both of us in the warmest embrace imaginable. Her eyes filled with joyful tears as she thanked heaven that Rowan had finally found someone who looked at her with kindness. Rowan froze. I tried correcting the misunderstanding, but before I could finish my sentence, Rowan's exhausted mother smiled with visible relief. Months of worry seemed to disappear from her face all at once. She believed her daughter had found stability, happiness, and someone who cared for her deeply. That was when Rowan reached beneath the table and squeezed my hand. She barely moved her lips as she whispered, "Let's just let them keep thinking that." I looked across the room and saw her grandmother laughing for the first time since arriving. Her mother looked lighter than someone carrying years of concern. I understood immediately that this wasn't about pretending to impress anyone. It was about giving 2 tired hearts one peaceful afternoon free from worry. So I nodded, the hours that followed became strangely beautiful. We cooked lunch together, shared stories, and laughed over childhood memories Rowan's mother enthusiastically revealed despite Rowan's embarrassed protests. Her grandmother kept smiling every time she looked at us. She spoke about how wonderful it was seeing kindness return to the family after years of grief. Although every compliment made me uncomfortable because it was built on misunderstanding, I couldn't ignore how much comfort it gave them. Before leaving, Rowan's mother quietly pulled me aside. She thanked me for standing beside her daughter during difficult years she hadn't even known about. She admitted she often worried Rowan hid her struggles because she never wanted to burden anyone. She said seeing us together allowed her to drive home believing her daughter wouldn't have to face life alone anymore. Those words stayed with me long after their car disappeared down the street. Inside the apartment, silence filled every room, neither of us knew what to say. Finally Rowan apologized through tears. She admitted she never intended to lie. She simply couldn't bear watching hope disappear from her mother's face after seeing it return for the first time in years. She expected me to hate her for putting me in such an awkward position. Instead, I surprised both of us that I admitted I didn't mind helping because somewhere along the way our apartment had already become home, and she had quietly become one of the most dependable people in my life. Nothing changed overnight after that afternoon. Or maybe everything did. We became more honest with each other than we had ever been before. Rowan confessed how lonely she had felt since losing her father. She admitted she spent years pretending everything was fine because she believed asking for help made people leave. I confessed my own fear of attachment after growing up moving from city to city with parents whose careers never allowed lasting friendships. We discovered we had spent years protecting ourselves from heartbreak while accidentally building trust anyway. Weeks later, Rowan received devastating news. Her grandmother's memory had declined much faster than expected. Some days she remembered everyone. Other days she barely recognized her own reflection. Rowan blamed herself for living so far away. She talked about giving up her career to move back home permanently. I reminded her that love wasn't measured only by distance. It was measured by presence, sacrifice, and showing up when it mattered most. Together we rearranged our schedules. I used vacation days to help Rowan organize medical paperwork, transportation, and temporary caregiving support. Friends from our neighborhood volunteered meals. Co-workers donated and used leave hours. Slowly Rowan realized she wasn't carrying everything alone anymore. Several months later, her family invited us to a daytime garden celebration for her grandmother's birthday. Rowan hesitated for days because she feared facing the truth. She insisted the lie had gone on long enough. I agreed. When we arrived, sunlight spilled across blooming flowers while laughter floated through the backyard. Rowan gently gathered everyone together. With trembling hands, she admitted that I had never actually been her boyfriend when they first visited. She apologized for allowing the misunderstanding to continue and accepted full responsibility. For several long seconds, nobody spoke. Then her mother smiled. She walked over, hugged Rowan tightly, and quietly admitted she had suspected the truth weeks after that first visit. She said real couples sometimes looked less comfortable than we did because what she witnessed wasn't romance pretending to be kindness. It was genuine kindness that had the potential to become something even stronger. She wasn't disappointed about the misunderstanding. She was grateful someone had stood beside her daughter when she needed a friend most. Her grandmother, despite the confusion memory sometimes brought, looked at both of us and simply said she recognized love in many forms, and the gentlest kind often arrived long before anyone realized its name. Those simple words settled something inside both of us. Driving home that afternoon, neither of us spoke much. Halfway through the trip, Rowan laughed unexpectedly. She admitted something that made both of us smile. The hardest part about pretending to be together wasn't pretending. It was pretending we weren't already becoming the most important people in each other's lives. Over the following year, nothing dramatic happened. There were no grand declarations in airports, no impossible coincidences, and no cinematic storms. Instead there were ordinary mornings filled with shared breakfasts, difficult workdays softened by patient conversations, hospital visits made less frightening because neither of us had to sit alone, birthdays celebrated with homemade cakes that leaned slightly to one side, and quiet afternoons spent painting the apartment walls after deciding together that it no longer felt like temporary housing. Real love, we discovered, often grows without applause. It grows through consistency, through forgiveness after misunderstandings, through choosing the same person on ordinary days. One bright autumn afternoon, standing in the same kitchen where everything had begun, Rowan handed me a small envelope. Inside was the original rental agreement we had both signed years earlier. Across the bottom she had written one simple sentence beneath our signatures. This stopped being just an apartment the day we chose honesty over fear. I looked at her, smiled, and realized the greatest relationships are rarely built by perfect beginnings. Sometimes they begin with mistakes that are redeemed through courage, compassion, and truth. Before we finish, tell us in the comments, have you ever experienced a moment when one act of kindness completely changed the direction of someone's life or even your own? Your story may give hope to someone reading today. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember that the strongest relationships are not built on perfect first impressions but on honesty, forgiveness, patience, and the quiet decision to keep showing up for one another. Sometimes the smallest act of compassion becomes the beginning of the happiest chapter. Two people never expected to write together, proving that hope often arrives disguised as an ordinary day that changes everything forever.